Well, it kind of makes you wonder, right? Because we have other Marvel games that are actually pretty fantastic. They're just not based in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, after playing games like Street Fighter, even like Mortal Kombat, this game is really not that good.
Shaq's gotta be like the worst fighter in the game.
One of my most prized possessions, though, is my Mario vinyl here. I got this at GDC 2007.
What you're kind of lamenting is that magic has kind of like become like just another flavor of damage, you know?
Exactly.
It's like, that's how I do damage.
The characters and the graphics pop up out of the table, can be rendered at the table's height or into the table.
So I guess the closest thing would be like hollow chess and Star Wars.
Yeah, like the Star Wars, yeah.
Alrighty, well, with all of the Marvel movies having come out, and we're well into Phase 2 so far this year.
Right.
We're into Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. We've seen kind of the typical video games that you would expect with those movies come out thus far.
Even none for Phase 2.
Yeah.
Right? Like they kind of gave up after Phase 1. They had the one Iron Man game.
Yeah.
They had a Captain America game that was mediocre. It was like a really bad Arkham knockoff.
Right.
And then they had Thor.
Like some mobile
Oh,
games.
that was the worst thing in the world.
Thor was trying to be like a God of War style,
That was an abomination.
and it wasn't very good.
No, that was not
I
good
think
at
I
all.
beat Captain America.
Captain America was the best of that bunch.
I couldn't even get past the first level of Thor.
Yeah, exactly, going into it. But now we're trying to figure out games. Are we asking about games they should be having, or do we want to look at games that we think are going to be coming down the pipeline?
Well, it kind of makes you wonder, right? Because we have other Marvel games that are actually pretty fantastic. They're just not based in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why are we still kind of getting these third-party offshoot simple games when we clearly have developers and people interested in both making and playing these games in the Marvel Universe that can actually craft a very good experience as opposed to just kind of crapping something out real quick?
So like they kind of made, not even a mistake, because people, argue that selling Spider-Man, selling X-Men off was a mistake from Marvel. You can make the argument that it also saved the company. Similar to making those mistakes, if you call it, I'll actually call these mistakes. They sold off the licenses to a lot of these games to Sega. Same thing for some of the Captain America games. So now the interesting thing is looking at the fact that Disney owns them. Disney, over the last couple of months, has made huge cuts to their interactive division. Interactive at Disney doesn't only mean games, it also means their YouTube channels and everything else. And then they laid off a bunch of people and then went out and bought Maker for $500 million, which is confusing in its complete own right. The question is, what is Disney going to do with these bigger properties? They've been shying away from big titles. They've been focusing on mobile. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Batman, Arkham Asylum, and City was my favorite series of the last generation.
Yeah.
Marvel has the best group of superheroes. We don't need to get into that argument now. Where are the games? It's great that we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's not make a game based on that. But let's make a game based on the characters that people are now familiar with in those universes. It's like everyone knows Iron Man. Everyone knows Captain America. People know who, Black Widow is and Hawkeye. Hulk had an amazing game.
He had several.
Ultimate Destruction was great. Like those games were great.
We had the Ultimate Alliance games as well.
Those were fun.
Those still technically included like the mutant characters, that sort of thing.
Right, but you could have like an Ultimate Alliance game that's just focusing on the Avengers themselves.
Well, especially considering the Avengers team, or at least their team and their acquaintances within the cinematic universe, are getting so big.
I was talking to someone last week about Bond. It's like, why do they need to keep making games about the Bond movies? Just make a Bond game that's its own thing. Like, just write a Bond movie. Like, there's so much Bond now. As long as you play with the rules of Bond, you could do something different. I want someone to tell me what type of game I want. I didn't know I wanted Arkham until it was here. So the Wolverine game was actually really good. It was based on the really shitty movie. So
it was actually better than the movie.
All the cutscenes were really bad. But the combat felt like the character. You felt like Wolverine. With Batman, you feel like Batman.
Sure.
And you just have to get to a point with these characters that you feel like the character.
Right.
And I
think
don't know if they've done that yet.
Another golden opportunity for them as they're introducing a brand new almost universe with Guardians of the Galaxy is you have kind of the more what's the word, the cosmic universe of Marvel coming through in this movie. They have to introduce a lot.
Right.
There's a lot of different stuff that you can get away with. You don't necessarily have to be very earthly with your game design.
No.
And so I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go with that, and who wouldn't have fun as Rocket Raccoon just blowing everything up in sight.
I'd love to see, like, let's go, fine, we don't have to go big, giant games. Go smaller, cooler digital downloads.
Yeah.
Take an indie company. Like, take someone, I'd love to see Cappy
Bro.
take on the Guardians of the Galaxy and Super Time Force.
A Super
style.
Time Force. Because they have one of the gyms.
Because it all kind of matches, right? Like,
Yeah.
it all just kind of works.
And it'd be great because then you can
that
choose,
art style,
you
those
choose from
characters.
each of the characters going into it,
Yes.
and you pick out what you need for whatever situation going into it.
Just make good games. I don't think people care. I mean, it's proven with, like, the Puzzle Quest stuff. It doesn't matter. We'll play them.
Yeah.
Just use it right.
Right.
If you make an XCOM style game, I'd be super happy.
An XCOM style game, even with the Guardians of the Galaxy,
But anyone, right?
where you can like move them around, you get to explore stuff, and then like if you make it digital, then you can go in and be like, okay, here's a new planet you can go off to, or here's a
Right.
new mission that's
Well,
going to be.
in this mission, the Avengers are joining you. In this
Yeah.
mission, that you're working with S.H.I.E.L.D. and you
Yeah,
have to be
exactly.
stealthy.
And then you can tie it into the rest of everything else that's going into it.
What's it? The pinball
yeah.
games are great.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Because those tables are so well done.
Well, it's the pinball game with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
I think was one of the most fantastic tables because it's such a weird experience, and it can only be done there because you're turning everything upside down, or you're like messing around with gravity, or other things that are going on in the pinball table.
But you know that the people making those tables know and love the universe and the comics, and they get it, and that's what needs to happen.
I feel like Marvel does a great job of trying to give you an experience the whole year through. I think with the movies, with the TV shows, now with the games, with the mobile games now, being able to be like, okay, we don't have something going on here, we can put this into this slot, or we can put this into this slot, or we can support what we have with other media that's out there. And so it's not like you're ever without Marvel somewhere in your life almost. And there's always like a bit of a story thread or a bit of a character. If you don't know someone, they're going to introduce it maybe in a mobile game, or maybe they're going to introduce it to you in like the comics somewhere, or maybe they're going to introduce it to you through the TV show, and you can see them again and again and again as you go through all these other forms of media.
Or do exactly what they did with the movies and put together a team, and it's the Marvel video game universe.
Oh, yeah.
And just play with it that way. Well, I mean, even look at you love the Uncharted games.
Sure.
Like I was saying, a Captain America and Black Widow and Hawkeye game, but it's those three in a Uncharted style game.
My guilty pleasure one that I would definitely want to see would be Guardians. I want to see somebody take that and just run with it.
Right.
And besides the obvious association with being in space, something of a Mass Effect hybrid kind of gameplay could work.
Yeah.
It
A
could
Mass
absolutely
Effect
work.
style game
And,
would be awesome.
They did it with Star Trek. Arguably not the greatest thing in the world, but
But
it's
still,
obviously it can
there's
be
a
done.
way to do everything right.
Right.
In honor of the announcement of Shaq Fu Returns or Shaq Fu 2 or whatever it's called, we went and played the original a bit. I know you played the original back in the day, so I want to get your rose-colored glasses impressions first of when, I don't know when you last played it.
I think I didn't have the realization when I first played it that it was actually a bad game because I was so young. But no, Shaq Fu was like, oh man, fighting games, this looks pretty cool. And Shaquille O'Neal was huge back then, so he was still playing for the Orlando Magic. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I have a game early, I'm going to tell all my friends and stuff. And they all came over, we all played it. And we had a good time with it. And it wasn't until maybe I got to college when I was online discussing with people about terrible games, and Shaq Fu just kept coming up, and then in articles, and I went back and I tried to like, yeah, after playing games like Street Fighter, even like Mortal Kombat, this game is really not that good.
But it was kind of the thing. Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience. Like we had rented it back in the day, and you know, I played it a few times. You know, and people talked about, you know, terrible game or whatever, and like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, this is not. It was not a great idea. It was like really like, you know, Shaq going to another dimension and like fighting these weird creatures and characters and things like that. You know, but it wasn't until like me and Justin went back and played yesterday. It's like, no, this game is bad. This is like,
Right. But I think even among like SNES, you know, B-level fighting games, like Clay Fighter is way better than Shaq Fu. Clay Fighter is like,
What
you
about
know,
Primal
tournament
Rage?
killer game. I think Primal Rage is better. I think you would have a hard time naming one that is worse. Tournament Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters is like way
I always
better.
wanted to play that. I never
It's
got to.
kind of a real fighting game.
Yeah.
You know, Street Fighter 2. These are all games. They're like, we should do one of those. Let's get Shaq involved.
Hitboxes were all over the place. It's like, how am I supposed to hit you? Like Shaq's got to be like the worst fighter in the game. It's like you try to do this. He's got like this flaming roundhouse kick thing, and I'm like, how am I supposed to hit somebody with this?
Yeah, like the ranges for everything. Like any like people who were trying to do anything with footsies and stuff. Like everything had like a preset move. There was like no variable of movement. Even like the jump.
Right.
Like the jump just kind of had like a preset like arc, and you were like kind of like screwed with that. And it was like a really high arc. There was like no, it like covered like half the screen or something. It looked really ridiculous. To its credit though, like when I first played it, like the story was really ridiculous. Like Shaq just going into like an old man's like dojo and like, hey, no time to explain. Just go through this door to this other dimension.
He's in Japan for the All-Star Games.
Yeah,
so
the All-Star
Yeah.
Game's always held in Tokyo, by the way. It's simple now, but back then, like a fighting game where you're like walking to your locations and you could like maybe there's like a hidden location or there's nothing like that other than just what you went to fight. And yeah, the rogues like gallery of villains in that game, like that you fought like the Catwoman at first, and then
There's the Prince of Persia clone.
the Prince of Persia clone who has like the Chun-Li kick somehow. And then the main villain was what, Set Ra, like a mummy meets Shao Kahn type thing.
Yeah, but there was like two mummy characters, or at least the other guy was kind of mummy-like, right?
Well,
Beast?
Memphis is like a green dude. He has like a hoodie and like
the poor man's Dr. Doom.
yeah, wrapped up shoes.
Yeah.
He's actually pretty decent. Memphis is my favorite
He looked
character.
pretty OP.
I think
electric
Set
moves.
in particular totally plays like a boss character. But yeah, I mean they had ideas if nothing else, but
Oh, they had
maybe-
the voodoo doll girl, who just like just pulls out the
Oh,
voodoo
that
doll and
half
stabs
elf?
him.
right, ideas is about all they had.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the new game, I think, if it's not ridiculous and bad, then what other angle can you take using the Shaq Fu name? You know, like what else does that?
Well, it's
what
funny.
else
He's
does that
like this
stand for?
grotesque neck.
Yes.
Like, neck
He looks
gigantic.
horrible.
It's like
on that-
I hope
that
you
model.
can headbutt really well, because I don't know what else you're supposed to do with those muscles. Like,
It looked like a Nicktoons or Cartoon Network, like the Rebirth of Ninja Turtles, like that 3D
Right.
animation. It looked like that, and I'm not really a fan of that look, but obviously it's like a concept trailer, whatever it is, a pitch trailer. But the message at the end, like we promise, we won't. This is like we promise we won't screw it up.
No,
or
we won't foo it up.
We won't foo it up. Yeah. I don't know. I think they need to go for that. They need to go for the ridiculousness.
But the characters seem kind of generic, right?
The ninja, the foes.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like normal foot soldiers. Like no, like you gotta go back to like the weird crap, like the Beast and all of that. Like you gotta go all out with the character designs and just make it as weird as you can.
I guess I just wonder, like, what's the point of trying to like bring this back? Like, did they look at something like Barkley, like Shut Up and Jam, and Barkley in the guiding like RPG games, and like, hey, Charles Barkley's name's being thrown into this like.
Well, has Shaq been
game.
stewing for the past 20 years and was like, man, it's like
I
they
mean-
messed my game up. I gotta make
Yeah,
it right.
he wanted to be a movie star. He wanted to be a rapper, and he wanted to like make video games.
Right, what does Shaq Fu mean? I don't think it means anything good. It's a different kind of game though. It's like a more, I guess, God of War or Devil May Cry type game with like, you know, a ton of moves and combos and whatever. It's like, you know, the
Yeah.
bullet points.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's anything aside from like melee combat and the name that crosses over whatsoever.
I want
what?
comedy from this game if
think,
they're gonna do it.
you know-
I think they have to go for comedy. I'm worried they're gonna
They gotta do
half-ass it.
Yeah, but I'm just worried that like. with
I think
the-
they're gonna go too serious. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I don't want them to go too serious. But
It's
I think
inherently comedic, you know,
Yeah.
a basketball player, like a roided up basketball player.
they said like what other than him lending his likeness, and I think that's his voice. Like, is Shaq could have any other like involvement? Did the Kickstarter or sorry, the
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo say anything about
I think they said
Well,
more than that.
I mean,
but
I
don't
think they
remember off the top of my
mentioned he personally invested in the project. I'm not sure why they need more
that? Yeah,
money.
couldn't
I
he
guess
like just fund
open
it
up the
himself?
wallet a little bit, right? They're only
I
they're
think
asking for what?
he is. I think this is like on top of his contribution.
Oh, he's just trying to.
So it's like getting the community involved and all that kind of thing. But it's weird.
This time we won't fool it up.
Show and tell. So welcome to my office, affectionately known as the Hoffice. I've got lots of fun collectibles in here. I'm kind of the guy at GT that spends way too much money on toys and games and fun things. One of my most prized possessions, though, is my Mario vinyl here. I got this at GDC 2007, right before my first interview that I ever got to do with Shigeru Miyamoto. He was my hero growing up. I loved the Mario games, played all the Nintendo games growing up, and when I met him, I was super nervous. So we did our interview, and in the end, I pulled this out, asked him to sign it. I was literally shaking, so afraid, but he was totally cool about it, and I have this, and it's gone with me everywhere. So I got my Mario and my little mushroom.